What is up, Pod Head PE?
Head PE.
What are we doing? Yeah. All right, Head PE tonight.
Singular.
Pod Head HED. What's up, everybody? We're back with another episode of the Podioslave podcast. My name is Tony, joined as always by Anthony.
Still here, never left.
Yeah, he is. Memph Bleak. Is that a Memph Bleak line? I can't even remember.
Change the game. Good call.
Hey, right? We had a blast. This is the part one of a double episode, a two-parter for 25 Years Broke with Wes Geer and Chad Benekos, founding members of the band Head PE. Broke was a record that we were fucking huge into growing up, and to be able to ask these guys all the questions about it and a two-part episode coming at you here in the next couple weeks. Damn.
I know. And if you recall, you might know, what episode did we've had Chad on before. We did 25 years of the self-titled. That was 3 years ago?
It was the right after the Tattoo the Earth stuff, because he had a story about Tattoo the Earth that we kind of weaved in as a teaser for, hey, we had Chad for 25 years of the self-titled Head record. But yeah, fall of September of 2022. So it's been almost 3 years. This time he brought Wes along. And it was awesome to hear them kind of interplaying on what happened and how things led from coming off of tour for the self-titled record, which they kind of marathon toured and wrote some of Broke on the road, into, all right, let's get in the studio. We're living together now. Let's make music. It was pretty cool to hear their stories.
It's funny, like throughout this, you kind of felt like you were there a little bit. Like they're dialing back to things that maybe they never even thought about since then. And that's I love when we get two members, and it's very rare for us, and it's just hard with scheduling and all that. And like we're getting two members who were there when things were just, they were coming up in that California scene, and things broke, and no pun intended, things broke, from the self-titled to this, and just kind of the sonic growth. And I mean, how old are they? They're young.
Yeah, at
early
this point.
20s. I mean,
they're off their EP that was probably pretty local to their first record on Jive, which was self-titled, into their sophomore record, Broke, which no sophomore slump here. Clearly, we're talking about it 25 years out. So yeah, they had to be in their mid-20s, early to mid-20s.
Yeah. For me, these double episodes, we never intend for these to be two episodes. We just start talking, we start ripping it. And it's usually with these retro episodes of these old albums, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, we'll do this week and next week. You'll get part one and part two of our conversation with Wes and Chad about Broke and all of the things that went into making it. From pre to post to touring to videos to all that stuff. So really fun combo here. We're gonna get it started. Part one of our combo with Chad and Wes about 25 years of Head PE's Broke.
All right, we get Chad. We got Wes. Thanks for joining us. Chad, it's been almost 3 years, if you can believe it, since you've been on with us. And Wes, Tony, you met Wes a few years ago.
I did. You remember
That's right.
signing this, Wes?
Whoa. Dude, I remember that moment.
Yes.
Is that authenticated?
Yeah, April 26th.
I remember that exact moment. I was like, yo, Tony, we're going to remember this.
April 26th, 2003. Did you think that anybody would be like, hey,
2003?
2003, Portland, Maine. Yep.
State Theater. Yeah.
Woo, those were, hey, for me, 2003, I was the fucking dark ages, you guys. I'll just name that. I was right about, I mean, if you're talking 2003, I was just about out of the band at that point. But anyhow, we'll stay in the positive note. We'll get in the dark shit. And we'll do the character arc and then bring it back up.
You were cool enough to sign my ticket stub after the show, so thank you.
Yeah. It was probably the highlight of my night, honestly.
It was the highlight of mine, for sure. It was like, shit, those guys are awesome.
So, Chad, 3 years ago, you were on the podcast. We did 25 years of self-titled. And I actually did listen back to that in kind of prep for this. That was a fun conversation. Like, I would love to relive that moment for you guys, like in the late 90s, growing up in California. That was a lot of fun. I don't know if you remember that combo we had, but.
Yeah, no, I remember you guys for sure. You guys are awesome. I don't do a whole lot of podcasts, so, but I remember talking to you guys about Tattoo the Earth and what a chaos that was.
That's right.
You guys were super into Tattoo, and I remember talking about the first record. Yeah.
Yep. We were riffing about Frashante for about 20 minutes at one point. It's like, oh, this has nothing to do with the record at all. But
that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can confirm.
That sounds right.
Well, 3 years have passed, and we were like, "Hey, broke is now 25, so I think it's time." So we hit you up, and I don't know how Wes came into the picture, but we were like, if he's on the table, yes, let's do it.
Chad's
The
like, I can
dynamic
have
duo.
Wes. Like, let's go. Let's get everybody.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, if you want, if you're gonna talk about, I just at this point, like, it's weird. Like, I don't love doing podcasts, but if I could and get Wes, like, it's way more important to have Wes there, you know. And so I hit him up, and he was like, "Yeah, no problem." You know what I mean? It was like that cool.
It's fun to do one with Chizza because I don't think we've, back in the day, we'd get a lot of guitar guy stuff together. You know what I mean? By the way, we call it Guitar Brothers. That was
Nice.
kind of our thing. We're Guitar Brothers,
Nice.
and we've let other people come into the Guitar Brotherhood. Like Darren from System and other people. I don't know if he remembers. Usually we would use the Guitar Brother thing if I wanted somebody to take a shot at Jack Daniels with me. Come on, Guitar Brothers.
Yes.
Anyhow, yeah, it's nice to be here and get to share space with my homie Chad.
Well, we're excited to dig into it. So we're going to talk 25 years of Broke. We do want to talk a little about the lead up to it first.
Wait, this is going to be 25 years long, this podcast?
Yeah,
Is
at
that what you're
least.
saying?
Yeah, man, let's keep it
Joe
going.
Rogan spell. Break
I
a
just want to
record.
know. Sorry, I got my hydro flask.
Perfect. Yeah, you might need more. We'll take a break if we need to. Get a bathroom break or whatever. I can pause the recording, but
Bio break.
yes. But yeah, let's talk, leading up to it. So you put self-titled out, right? You're kind of in between. What are things like as a band at that point? Do you guys have like a bunch of ideas ready to go, or are you just like, all right, this is cool, maybe we get back in the studio soon?
Wow. What was it like, Chad?
Ooh, you want me to go first?
Yeah, go first. And then I was going to ask you to go first. It might jar some memories,
Okay. I have a specific memory. Forgive me. It sucked kind of when we came home from the first
I
record.
remember that.
It wasn't the greatest. We were having like, our first record tour, and everything's the first thing we ever did. And then we all came home, and hold on, I'm getting too many girls try to call me.
Oh, we lost him.
It's a bitch, man.
We lost him.
Oh, wrong button.
Yeah, that's all right.
Well,
we'll keep it rolling. He'll jump back in here in a second. Go ahead, Wes.
yeah. We had come off we toured a long time on the first record. When we signed to Jive, Jared and I went and met the execs, and we told them that we wanted to be like Metallica. We weren't going to try for radio. We just wanted to stay true to the art and grind out there. We didn't know how to write a song. We didn't know song formats. We just, if a part got boring, we wrote a new part and did that until the song felt like it should end, And so we stayed out on self-titled as long as we could because we felt like this is a great record and we wanted to get as much legs behind it as we could. So I'll let Chad comment on the part, like the toughness and the transition. But they say, in my experience is the same, where you have your whole life to write the first record, right? So you're just writing, right? We wrote probably 17 songs for the first record that just got thrown away. Not for the first record, for the band that got thrown away. So what was on the first record, would have been like song 18 through 30 or whatever, Oh, now you look like Batman. Chad, you were telling us about the part that sucked after the first record and coming home.
Oh, yeah. That's right. It did suck. So we all came home, right? We didn't all have places to live. It didn't seem like, well, I don't know about the rest of the guys. Me, Wes, and Jared. And Jared and I were roommates forever. And then before and during. And then at that point, everyone had their own spot. I got this weird apartment in Long Beach that was like on the top of this store. It was like the toppest most thing, and we were making demos, and I was making demos, and Wes was having a hard time. I don't remember, you lived actually with chin strap. Remember Chinny?
Yep.
And it was going
God
bad. It
rest
was
in
the
peace.
weirdest thing, and I remember thinking, like, I was always really protective of Wes for some reason, and I was like, dude, just come bring all your shit and stay with me in my house. Remember that?
I do remember that.
Okay, yeah.
We lived
And so
on
we
bottles of
teamed it
wine
up,
and cheese spread.
I don't remember, but I had
I
a
do.
weird old cassette 8-track. I had did like the Meadow and Pac Bell, and I was all fired up. And Wes was like really cool at that point for me. Like he was really supportive, you know, musically, and we just shacked up in this little apartment, and then luckily we went and got an apartment down in Huntington Beach, and that was like the best time of my life. Like we did the whole broke recording, the whole broke touring, the whole everything, living in this like apartment in Huntington Beach.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like the beginning of it was a little rough coming off that first record and writing demos, but then it started to get really good when we set up in Huntington, and I was there with Wes, and we had a rehearsal studio that was like right up the road, and things were just going really good for a minute. Actually, it stayed good for a long time, but like starting the broke process didn't seem so awesome to me. It seemed like really rough until maybe the label or our management did something and got us a little bit of like, okay, your demos sound good, and we had got some new equipment. Things started rolling, and then it just started getting really good. I remember from that point on, and I was really, really happy at that point in my life.
Were you guys full-time band at this point?
Oh yeah, when we this is the recorder that Chad had, and what we record, and Jared and I, it's an old Tascam 8-track.
Wow.
That's what we tracked most of the first record on, you know, our demos, and Jared still used that for a minute, but then we got the label to buy us a Roland 1680. I don't know if any of these gearheads out there, but that was a little cassette deck thing, right? So then we went to the Roland 1680, which was like a hard drive recorder, and then we moved up to like this little baby right here. And we have
Nice.
virtual tracks, and we could actually do some editing. So that's what we were demoing. And so it's great that Chad reminds me of that. So the reason, you guys ever hear, what do you call a musician without a
I
girlfriend?
don't know.
Homeless. And so that's what happened. I broke up with my girlfriend, and that's probably why I was sleeping with Chad, you know what I mean? And then in the same house, not with Chad.
Yeah.
And then what Chad was saying, we got a cool apartment in Huntington Beach with one of my best friends for a long time, this cat, Pistol Pete. And I remember, to be honest, you were asking earlier about like song ideas. Did you have a bunch? I mean, you always have riffs floating around, but what I was really proud of is that, you know, when we were forming Head way back and we didn't know what direction to go, we saw Jared and I took a bunch of mushrooms. Like I OD'd on mushrooms. I'm not kidding. I was flopping on the ground. It was at the Velodrome. It was Beastie Boys, Cypress Hill, and Rage Against the Machine, and one other band.
Wow.
And we were like, what direction should we go? And then when we saw that, we were like, that's it. We want to be like heavy like Rage. We want to have gangsta like Cypress Hill bass lines. And we want to have some of that party rock stuff like Beastie Boys, right? And that was really what, I got chills just now. That's really helped us formulate our sound, what direction. And so, you know, I remember telling Jared, I want to get a DJ in our band. That would be cool. And at the time, there was no Slipknot. You know what I mean? When we did this, Deftones didn't tour with a DJ. Incubus didn't have a DJ. Linkin Park didn't exist that we knew of. So we, you know, in our view, we were the only ones doing that way back when. And so what was cool is, for me as a guitar player, just the way I work, you know, if you're Paul McCartney or Kurt Cobain, you're strumming some chords and you're singing a melody, and it's all this interplay that you have. It might be a boring chord pattern, but your melody is sick. You know what I mean? Boring, right? It might be just a normal. For me as a guitar player, the riff's only as good as the way the drums and the groove and the guitar riff goes. And so I would work a lot with DJ Product and just go get a lot of his beats, which were break beats, right? And that's kind of a dead art now, you know, but literally he would go digging in crates, and there's these cats that you never heard of that would put out just breakbeat records, right? That you could mix. And I would get a bunch of beats. And so I remember having those beats and going down and like just trying to write riffs over. Like that's how Bartender came to be. Bartender was actually a couple break beats that I put some riffs on. And so I remember sometimes being at that house and just going, I got to go to the fucking studio and try to write something. I got nothing. And I remember reading Steve Morse interview years ago. He was just like Dixie Dregs, super ripping guitar, kind of Nashville vibe, but like somewhere Nashville meets friggin' Yngwie Malmsteen. He was this ripper. But reading guitar magazines, he's like, people say you can wait for inspiration, but you can't. You got to just go. When you got to write your record, you got to go write your record. I always remembered that. Like, if I don't have a song, I got to go get in the studio and try to come up with some ideas to bring into the guys.
That was actually a question of mine. Like, you guys got back from the self-titled touring cycle, sounded like pretty burnt out or whatever. Did Jive already have a schedule for record 2, like deadline, everything set? Like, you guys got to jump in right now? Was everything kind of pre-coordinated?
It wasn't pre-coordinated. I think it was more we really set the tone with Jive. We told him what we wanted, and we knew we had to take time to write. You can't. And I remember, I don't know if Chad remembers this. At certain times, we would rehearse right next to Korn in like little two-room studio. I swear to God, those guys would write an album in like 3 weeks. They come in, our second album's like, motherfucker, what? And we're like, we worked on Darky for like 6 months. That song, we were just kept going back to it.
Nice.
But it just took a while. But what was cool now is that Mark started like really messing around on he had some little mixing machine and started coming up with beats. And then, Chad had his little project studio, and it really started to be where ideas were coming from a lot of different areas that we could collab on. Like Jesus of Nazareth came out of this, like, you guys, you remember when drum and bass was really hot for a minute? So Mark got into drum and bass, and he did a full drum and bass track, super up tempo, right? Double time tempo programming. But then we made it into Jesus of Nazareth, which is funny because Jesus of Nazareth is all slow and
Yep.
But that came out of a drum and bass idea that Mark had, and then Chad at his house up in the loft doing his talk box part for, what was that song? Pac Bell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he had to talk. It was he had these motifs, right? And then that one, Pac Bell, was cool because. So one of the things we were excited about, the first record, we worked with T-Ray because he had done Helmet and Snot, our friends, and he also did House of Pain, I think. But he had kind of a rock hip-hop hybrid, so he had some of that. But he wasn't super technical. We did the first record. We were doing a little bit of Pro Tools on a CRT screen. Like, you're talking DOS. This thing sucked. So we were trying to sync up the few times we used the 808 with a SP, 1200 drum machine and DJ and live drums. It was rocket science. It was fucking hard to do. It was very hard to do back then. Nobody could do it. Fast forward, Machine, we had an opportunity. They said, hey, let's do a remix. And they told me about this guy, Machine. And Machine had done a song that was on this record, Super Swinging Sexy Sounds. It was this Rob Zombie remix record that my chick at the time had. Super dope remixes. So we gave Machine Darky, and it was just nuts what he did. So we reached out to him to work with us because we knew that he had like all technical skills from what he had worked with. And he was tight with one of the engineers who was on Trent Reznor's staff. So we knew he could technically do what we wanted to do, which was what I told you, bring in all this programming, the talk box with Chad and the break beats. And I programmed a lot of our beats on the MPC 60 and MPC 2000.
That's wild.
So this is all stuff that wasn't there for self-titled.
Yeah. I don't think we really carried any ideas over. Did we carry anything from self-titled?
You mean song-wise?
Yeah.
Song-wise, no.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I don't think so.
We did experiment on the first record with the MPC a little bit because I remember you had did that song TOS, and even in the very, very early days, before anybody was doing that, the first record we did one by ourselves, that Church of Realities EP, which is kind of the first record, but us. And we had 808s and Ben on that, and we would go back and forth from punk rock to hip hop, and that was like our little thing. So I think we did carry over like our aesthetic, like our thing that we wanted to do was kind of like Wes had a vision, you know, and it started small, but it got bigger. Broke was the pinnacle of it, obviously, but you know, in the early days, if I'm being honest, there wasn't a lot to look up to. And I've said this before, being like in the scene and being a fan and just being like young and looking around, like the only bands that I looked around, I went, Sublime was the biggest thing, right? And everyone, they were the biggest thing around town. And they mixed up punk rock and reggae. We weren't going to do reggae, but we were definitely trying to do punk rock. And we went specifically to like the hip hop genre of music, which is it's very technical. You got to do it right. And I remember Wes did that from the very beginning. Remember that 33, before it was 33, you had made that demo and it was just a punk song, but then it had the hip hop part. It was like exactly what we had played on that first record. And kind of that whole thing sort of blossomed into what we had turned into, you know, later.
Yeah. Our tech. Yeah.
So no, the song, we didn't have songs ready for Broke. I know we're talking about Broke. No, after we were touring the first record, we were already past the first record when we were touring, and we had this little recorder. Wes had the MPC. We were making demos already. You know, we were just playing the first record, but while we were touring and on the Ozfest and all that stuff, we were demoing stuff and ideas that would become what Broke was.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That's
on the
cool.
road.
Yeah.
A lot, dude. Dude, we played songs like, we had this song called Number 7. It was the talk box. It was the whole thing I thought would make the record. It didn't. I don't know why. We were playing songs like Boom. Wes had that riff, and we had a couple others that actually made it to Broke from touring the first record. So we were already on our way to finding that, you know, that record.
Yeah, that's right. Because Boom, that riff, I was talking to these guys before you came on, how I remember guitar, where I was when I wrote a lot of guitar riffs for some reason. And I remember writing that in the RV, which means for sure we are on the first record cycle. And so, and then I remember programming the beat on Boom, living in Huntington Beach when I was still with my girlfriend, because I was literally sampling Curtis Mayfield, Ice Cube, and all these parts. If you listen to the Boom beat, I literally, all those sounds I sampled into the MPC. Probably I had a 60 at that time to make that little groove.
I guess it was the 60, but I remember when you also wrote Feel Good. So that was also on the MPC. And we had a lot of songs that didn't make it, but that one specifically, I don't know if you did it, but that beat was the beginning of the song. Like you didn't even have the remember that? It was the beat. You guys, I watched you do it. And
I did that at Sean Olsen's
finally
house.
got a tour bus, maybe it was the RV, dude. I don't remember. But Feel Good started at that point too. But I do just want to say before I forget, you guys that don't know, I mean, we could write a million songs, and we did, and a lot of them didn't make it. And I wasn't yet ready to explode with my creativity, but I just wanted to be my best part of the band I was supposed to be. But Wes, at that time, I will say, I'm not just saying that because he's on here, I've said it to many people, seemed like a well of never-ending riffs.
Nice.
Never-ending, you guys.
That's
and I'm not just saying that because it's our band, but I remember there would be times where I would have an idea and I would just go over to his house and go, hey, can we vibe on this? What do you think of that? And he would either like it or not. And if he liked something I did, he would be like, oh yeah, dude, you know what we need to do? And then the next thing you know, he would go, oh, we need a bomb chorus. And he would just have something.
That's
Do you know
awesome.
what I mean? Like just some riff that I never heard him play. And I would go, oh, what? You've been sleeping on that? Or where did that come from? Did you just make that up? I don't get it. But he did this over and over, you guys, all the time. Sometimes on demand. Like, we need a riff. What should we do? And then he would fuck around, and all of a sudden he'd be like, oh, yeah, that thing. Let's do that. Let's nail that. And then it would be something. So I don't know where he did it, how he came up with it, but all the intricate, weird stuff on Broke it took a while, but the main riffs just came out of Wes. like he just had them, dude, one after the other. It seemed like to me, maybe he can tell you better, but I was close to him. You know what I mean? So I felt like I knew what he had. Maybe he was sleeping on shit.
I haven't heard that one before.
I don't know. Maybe he had. Maybe you had a bunch of riffs and you just kept them, the best ones, to the side. But it seemed like out of nowhere, all of a sudden, I was like, oh my God, the bartender riff. Come on, dude. You know what I mean? The feel good riff. Yep. A lot of riffs that were really critical, killing time. Like we're talking about half the record right now, he just was like, oh, but this. You know what I mean? And it was easy for us to go, oh, God damn. Well, now we're going to. The band was so good at that point, too. I don't want to say we were so good, but
you were.
The band was so seasoned. We were so together that
we had a rhythm.
We had a rhythm. When we wanted to lay into any riff, even if it didn't make it, we could figure it out and go, we could nail it together in the studio, and it would just be like, oh, that's fucking badass. And a lot of those ones that were like that, they made it. Some of them didn't, but Wes just kept coming up with them, dude. Just, here you go. I like this. What about this? What about this? What about that?
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's kind for you to say. Like for me, it's funny because,
why is it kind? It's not even kind. It's the fucking fact.
Thank you. You know how it is. People see you different than you see. I always felt like I was struggling. And like we talked about earlier, like I remember the Feel Good riff. I programmed. There's an old friend of ours named Sean Olson, and he was friends with the Korn guys too. And Korn actually wrote a song named Sean Olson. I actually just saw Sean at Fieldy's house Saturday or Sunday or whatever.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And I programmed the beat for Feel Good at his house. We used to stay up all night, literally, and I programmed the beat. But I wanted to put a heavy riff to it. And I remember sitting in the studio. It was hours, you guys, of just until I found that riff that fit with Feel Good. So there was a lot of chopping wood. I think what Chad's talking about, at least I could give you my perspective, is like once you get that idea where you're like, this is cool, then the vibe's easy from there. Like if Chad comes in and it's like, oh, this beat, and that's like, okay, yeah, it was easier to work there. But when you have nothing, that's when you're like, okay, we need to get something. That's when it was really chopping wood and carrying water. And then when you get that, like for me, the easiest way to write is when somebody has something cool and they need a part, and hearing the part that's missing or hearing the part that'll take it. Like, and I was just thinking about this the other day, and Chad did this a million times with like the like melodic riffs on Darky, or, not just so many songs. I remember on Jesus of Nazareth, Mark had that song and it needed like a little melody part, that ding, 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 ding. Those parts, like, they come out when you got a vibe to play against, And I think, and Jared actually showed me that too lyrically when I would be, talking about him vocally, like working with him on a part. And he would be rapping over one of my songs or riffs or whatever. And he'd be like, yeah, it's not that easy. I'm like, what are you talking about? You can rap over anything. You got a beat. He goes, watch, let me do my same rap that I'm doing right now to your beat and then put it over some Fuji's shit. And they would do it over Fuji's, and I'd be like, oh, damn, it's so much better over the Fuji. So you really, got to clue into the interplay and the magic of all that stuff.
So, and this is a question that we had a little later on, but I'm going to ask it now because we're talking about it. Did you guys, it all depended on where you were at with the song? Like sometimes the riff came first, sometimes there was the rhythm piece first, or sometimes there was lyrics first, or did you guys sit in the room together and just kind of throw stuff at each other and then come up with it from there?
Yeah, I think like for me, I told you guys earlier, I like to write against the beat. So sometimes I would program beats right on that. I would get beats from DJ. That was a lot of the stuff. And Mark, even like Killing Time was a loop Mark brought in. I talked about Jesus, and I can't remember, there's probably some other ones, but a lot of times it would start like that, being a rock band, start with the riff and, usually the beat. Sometimes we would bring a riff in and write with BC, but I think we did most of our stuff with break beats and program beats just to start it because we so wanted to have that hip hop foundation, Yeah. Like I remember Crazy Legs, I was going to the studio to write another song, and like I had another song idea, and I was driving, and I remember a James Brown song came on, and James Brown is the king of like funky shit. I'm listening to it, and it started with a snare drum. It's like tat, tatoon, tat, but that was how the funk. I was like, fuck, that's dope. Don't start with a kick on the one. Start with that. So I go, Mark, come on, I got this idea. And I programmed that beat. Tat, tat, boom, boom, tat, boom, 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 ba, boom. And I just did my guitar right with it. And I remember thinking, because Machine had told me, like, what's this something? There's a Limp Bizkit song that just goes, bound, down, bound, down.
Break stuff.
The break stuff, yeah.
Break stuff. And it's a great song, man. It gets the crowd going. And Machine was saying, like, he goes, don't forget to write songs that just any kid could just play. They're just simple as fuck. And so that was kind of, to me, don, ba, don, don, ba, ba. That chord's a little tricky, ba,
Yeah.
ba, ba, but it's pretty simple. Like if you're a kid, you can pick that up. So that was kind of how that happened.
So you guys, it feels like the way you're chatting about it, you guys had feels like untouchable chemistry, just like creatively. Is that how, looking back, is that how it was, or did it feel that you feel that in the moment, or?
I think looking back is the best lens for me. I think when you're young, for me, when I'm young, you're focused on your own value a little more than probably you should be, and then you get more seasoned and you watch these, sports teams are a great example. Like some rad athlete, he's on a great team and he's like, fuck you, I'll go over here. And then it's like, well, now you're 1-17, bro. How'd that work out? And you watch that in music all the time, right?
Yeah.
Great player, great singer, over and over, they go solo. It's like, and you learn it's all about the chemistry, man. It is all about. And then when Chad left, Sonny was our homie and we love him and he's a vibe master and just so cool, but just not the same. Chad is just fucking Chad and is so fucking important and was just never the same, and so you learn those lessons experientially. I think it's the best teacher in that,
I will say, as an answer to that question, yeah, there was a chemistry, and whether or not we all knew it then, I think we did, but you really don't until later. And even to this day, like I'm writing songs all the time. I'm finishing a record right now, so there's once in a while I'll have an idea and I'll go, this would have been a head song, and I'll think, fuck, man, like I'll think like, what if I walked in with this thing? I'm not going to play it for you right now, and I said, Wes, what do you think of this? Can we vibe on that? I already know what would happen in my imagination. I think of what we were back then. He would go, oh, dude, yeah. And then Ben would do Ben, and Doug would do Doug, and all of a sudden it would probably sound really great musically. And it wouldn't take much for Jared to walk in and go, oh, yeah, that sounds great, and do whatever he's going to fucking do. So, yeah, it is true. Even to this day, and I've collaborated with so many people, dude, and I still do. And I have a certain vibe with certain people, and I always go, oh, it always works out with that person. Maybe they're just really good. I don't know, and they're helping me, but I don't think so. I think it's a vibe. And I think I just got really lucky at that point in my life to play with those guys at that musicianship level that they were at. I didn't feel I was there. I always thought, oh, I'm not that good. I always thought that's why I thought the sky was so high for our band. I always, I didn't see us for what we were. I thought we were something else greater than what we were supposed to be. I don't know. My vision of our band was, super delusional. I thought we were just the thing. And that's because I watched enough songs go from nothing to something that I thought was great. Now I can't listen to that first record really. And I've said it before, like, it doesn't feel good to me. It brings back weird memories of too much drugs and it just doesn't sound whatever. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. But enough times I've seen nothing turn into something that I thought was so good. Like so good. I'm like, oh my God, like my band can do anything. Like Wes can play anything. And that guy can play anything on drums. And Jared can do anything. And I just thought, oh, sky's the limit. I was so excited. So yeah, dude, I don't think that happens all the time in bands. And I didn't know it then. But in hindsight, I know it now, and I don't want to make too big a deal out of it, but I thought, yeah, we did have something really unique and special, and everyone was like super, super talented. So, yeah.
You nailed it. It was unique, and there was no blueprint for it. And I think we got into this in the last conversation, but
Yeah.
you got to remember the time period, and you guys alluded to it. There was no DJs. There was, none of this. So this was you guys. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes it bittersweet a little bit. It'll always be that. But I've made peace with it, like, because you just sound like a crazy person at this point. If you're like, oh, I remember when there wasn't any of that and I did it first. They're like, okay, old man. But I do remember being there and going, wow, this is really cool, just being a part of it. And that's the only band dynamic I was ever in where I was like the youngest guy, the only one. And in Head P, I was the youngest guy, so I was still young enough to be very influenced, right, about my surroundings. And I was still young enough to be like, not delusional, but like 100% in, like all in. Like I jumped into the deep end head first. It didn't matter that Wes and Jared weren't the best role models. To me, I didn't know any better. They were like, I looked up to them so much. I was like, I'll go do drugs right now. I don't give a fuck. Let's go. You know what I mean? But yeah, in that time, I felt like nobody was doing anything near us. And I was protective enough around bands that were like around our scene. I was like defensive for them. Like, hey, don't copy Sublime. You know what I mean? Do your own thing. Don't copy Korn. Take off the Adidas thing. What are you doing? All that. But I was protective of us too, because I knew that I thought we were doing something. I thought at the time we were doing something that was going to like change everything, and that we were going to be celebrated as some kind of like, I don't know what.
Well, I think if in our eyes, and this is three guys that grew up on the other side of the country from you, but we saw it. You know what I mean? Like we were like, this band has all these things, and oh wow, we heard Broke, but then we went backwards and like, oh, they were doing it, 3 years ago. Like, what the fuck? How do we miss that? And then we, went backtrack and listened to all that stuff and became huge fans of those records and of that time. You hit us at the perfect time, and to get, across country from where you guys grew up and where you guys are making music to hit us in, sunny Portland, Maine is a testament to what you were able to accomplish. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It felt
That's
good.
cool.
Felt good when we got approached by Jive Records, which had, Vice One and Tribe Called Quest and, all this East Coast hip hop. And we wanted to be, because I just remember it felt really good to get, to have Jive want to sign us. It felt really validating to what we were trying to do, because when you got people coming out putting the real stuff, the OG stuff, and they're like saying, you guys are doing the thing. And that's what we wanted to do, what came after us. And like Chad said, you don't want to sound like a grumpy, weird old guy, but like any genre, there gets to be this kind of watered down, like, I guess, ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's watered down. It's not the pure, super good shit. And it just became like a bunch of bad white guys rapping over bad metal riffs, right? And it was like, that's what we didn't want to do. We didn't want to just be like, like, that's easy. But it's a fine line. When is it super dope like a Crazy Legs? I don't know. But, so it felt good to get signed by Jive. And, about the chemistry, I just want to give a shout out to like, Mark and BC too, because, we had kind of a, you had obviously Korn was massive and had their Fieldy and David Silvera thing that was super important to them. And we had our own approach. And, the chemistry is chemistry when it's like working, right? When it's like, and those guys just got so friggin' locked in as a rhythm section. And what we did a lot of is like, BC was very, like, he played a lot of Ghost Strokes and just put the sickest loops to so many heavy riffs. And he kind of had that James Brown funky drummer Ghost Strokey thing going. And then a lot of times we would have Mark playing more like what a reggae or an 808 would do, rather than like, let me just play along like a guitar player to the guitar riff. He would be like, bah, 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 you know what I mean? And that interplay and what those guys had going on that just was so friggin' special, man. So I like to give the rhythm section a shout out, because if you're going to talk about doing the hip hop and the funky beats and the badass loops. It's the rhythm section that has to be sick as fuck to pull that shit off, you know?
Yeah. 100%.
Speaking of the jive, like validation, like when did you guys call it? Like, did you guys have a finished track list and you're like, this is it, this is our final draft? Or did they, because you said they gave you kind of creative freedom, it sounds like. Did you
For
guys
what?
come
The Broke record, or what are
for
we
the
talking
Broke
about?
record? Yeah.
I don't really remember when I just think we felt like we had enough ideas, but and which is interesting with your question is to remember our mentality, because Pac Bell, we knew we were going to write in the studio a lot with Machine's help. I started kind of talking about that earlier because it was an idea, but we were like, okay. And so we sat with Machine on all the track ideas, started doing pre-pro.
Every song.
Yeah, and so that one was like, hey, yo, Machine, we want your help as a producer to massive attack this, you know, and so we'll do a lot of it in studio, where another song like Waiting to Die was very live and ready to go. You know, that was ready from Ozfest, whatever. We always debate what year, 98, 99, whatever year. That one was ready from the back of the bus in Ozfest. So different tracks were in different states, and I think when we just felt like we had enough to do. And I don't know, did we leave anything off that didn't make it on that record? I feel like a lot of times bands, and it's a great strategy, you know, you write 30 and pick your favorite 15. I think Broke is a pretty pure record. I think pretty much all our ideas made it on there, you know.
Wow.
Except for Circus is on the first record, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So no, I'm thinking of a different record. Sorry, my bad.
on Pac Bell, who's doing like the auto tune vocals? Like, we used to drive all night.
That's
Chad.
me. Nice.
That's a
That's
Chinchinator,
Chad.
yeah.
I never knew
awesome.
that.
I never knew that. That's amazing.
That's
With his talk box.
Yeah, that demo, like I even have it. I have a bunch of demos here. Like, it didn't sound like that. It was like this is how Pac Bell used to sound. You hear that?
no.
That's how good it was.
So that shit.
Yeah,
I heard a little bit of it.
Didn't really come through.
Oh, okay. So I remember Wes and I driving to Guitar Center. We were so hyped on the band in the early days, and we wanted to, like, as a guitar team, it wasn't. I always was like, he's beyond guitar. He's a masterful guitar player. I'm like, you're the lead guitar player. I'll just play rhythm. And he was so cool about it as a person like that. Like, no, fuck all that. Let's just do stuff that separates ourselves. And so he bought that whammy pedal. I don't even know if Rage had the whammy. I don't remember. You had it early. And I was super into the Roger Troutman. Do you know who that is from Zap?
Not specifically, but
Okay, so you know that song by Dr. Dre?
Yeah.
California.
Yeah, into the
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's Roger Troutman. He's famous for the
right
talk
on.
box. He would do it on a keyboard. I was crazy for it, dude.
Nice.
And I told Jared the whole time, I'm getting a talk box, dude. We're gonna go funk. We're gonna do this and that. But I just didn't have it in time for that first record. I had it for the tour, so I would call out every city live, like St. Louis, and I would
Nice.
pick the notes on my guitar. It's a different talk box. You play the notes on your guitar and you sing into the mic, but the notes that come out are the notes you choose on guitar.
Interesting.
So it's kind of difficult. I got really good at it, and that just became my thing. And I was like, I'm not gonna get a whammy pedal. That's Wes's thing. And so I got the talk box thinking that would be like my little different thing. So yeah, it's not a auto tune. It sounds like it nowadays, but back in the day, it isn't that. It's this pedal that you play guitar into, but the sound doesn't come out of your amp until you sing into the microphone, and then it transposes it.
Wow.
again, pioneers, because you're right. That was before Kanye West auto tune era in the late 2000s.
T-Pain and-
Yeah, it was more of
There
a
you go.
musician thing, and I was super proud of it. I was super into it. We had other songs that didn't make it, onto the record that I did talk box on. And we played this one song called Number 7, and we opened the show with it for like half the tour every night. I don't know why we didn't. Maybe we didn't need 2 talk box songs. I don't know.
Or maybe Jive was like, oh, you already leaked that track, so nah. That track's been leaked.
No, we did. They didn't cut. Like if we were like we want the song, it was never an issue like that. You know
Yeah.
who does what Chad's talking about now is Chromeo. Chromeo does
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of this kind of talk box stuff in there. Do you ever listen to Chromeo, Chad?
I'm just the first time hearing about it.
Yeah, Chromeo's like they pull it off because they do a lot. They're two guys. They do a lot of funk stuff. It's cheesy, but it's so fucking good, right? Where you're like, this almost feels cheesy, like, but fuck, it's good. And the guy's always on the talk box. Yeah, it's really good, but with a
That's
keyboard,
rad.
like the legit way. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that Chad brought that in, and just yeah, it's like those things, those little things that give you that flavor, right? That just set you apart, you know. And going back to something Chad said, I remember thinking about that too, because we for sure looked up to Korn because they were just blowing the fuck up, and I got to see them when it was like 20 people at 5902, and there was
Yeah.
just this weird mystique that came over the crowd where people were like in a trance. I've never seen anything like it since. It was like a weird effect they had. Anyhow, so but even I guess what my point is, even giving them all those accolades, we were always like, but look what we can do because
Yeah.
don't see Korn going into a talk box thing that Jared could do, rapping, and the way we could go into funk or just a more rock and roll vibe or a more, you know, we felt like we had a lot more opportunity to go into different genres, if you will,
Yeah, you
different
guys are
blends.
super versatile in that respect. You could kind of live in a bunch of different worlds, and you do on Broke, you do on Self-Titled, and it's evident that you were, and especially now talking to you guys about it for a half an hour, 45 minutes, that you were big nerds when it came to putting together the fun, different quirks of the record. When you're putting together kind of the whole overarching theme, are you thinking to yourselves, it's going to sound a little better because it does sound a little more produced than Self-Titled does, but it still has that rawness? Were you cognizant of trying to keep that raw, heavy aspect of the band too, even though you were hip hop based?
For sure, yeah, yeah. So like we were very cerebral around our guitar tone. Like I grew up loving there's these needles we were trying to thread, right? Like a lot of guys would go for the super metal tone, and we didn't want to do that. And I was really influenced, back to that, chunk metal rap shit, which is fine to all the people doing it. But I was really influenced by like early B-52s, early Dead Kennedys, a lot of that twangy bow bow bow, that
Yeah.
single notes shit.
Yeah.
And so we would go to the second position on the 5-way switch and split the coil. So we'd be tuned down to B, but then that's how we got that sound for like Bartender and a lot of the other riffs like Waiting to Die as a single, so those things were inspired to be purposely punky and, twangy and heavy.
I don't know if you know what he's talking about when he says second position. He's talking about split and pick up on the guitar. It's a guitar tone. And lots of people over the years have falsely given me the credit for that tone on certain songs because I play a Strat. Like I'm a Fender guy. So everyone would assume like, oh, that's Chad doing that ding 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 ding, that surf punk, that surf punk sound that we do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
It's very specific. That's what Wes is talking about. And that was Wes's idea. And he doesn't even play a Strat. He was playing an Ibanez. So he specifically went for that tone. And I remember him telling me, hey, dude, you know what we should do? Like, because we were nerds too, like that. We should fucking go like this. We'll play the whole riff like that. And I was like, are you sure you don't want to just make it heavy? And he's like, no, it'll cut through. It'll be weird and cool. And then when we keyed into it, it really was different. Nobody would even like think to do it or be brave enough to do it on purpose. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that just became our signature. We're like, fuck it. Every time we're going to lay into something, well, sometimes we would go full metal, but when we were going like that surf punk thing, we would both be like, for sure on that pickup and twanging that single string thing on purpose, like to the point like of no, you can't mistake it. Yeah. And I just wanted to point that out because that wasn't even my idea. I just falsely get credit for that a lot over the years because I play a Strat. And people don't know. They're just like, oh, yeah, they're hearing some weird. Wes is over there going, wee! we're all doing this crazy shit, and I'm playing guitar.
Yeah.
I'm playing a fucking single coil Strat. Of course, you're gonna think, oh, that's Chad. He came up with that, but it wasn't that way, you know. But yeah, we were pretty militant about our sounds, almost to the point of like nausea. Like I don't know. We put a lot of work into it. I'll say that we really cared about the tones. We really put a lot of work into it. Whether or not anyone will notice it, I don't know. But we're talking about it 25 years later. So maybe, you know, there is something to it. But like Wes said about when Wes was touching upon the rhythm section, I wanted to touch upon that too. And I've said it before. It helped us when we were trying to find ourselves. Once we hit a stride in our writing and in our sound, it helped us quickly write songs, but it didn't always happen that way. And one of the critical things that happened was Wes and I were on a page of like, okay, we're going to do different shit almost all the time. You know? Yeah, maybe we'll link up on a riff here and there, but we have two of us. So let's each do something completely different. But the bass and the drums have to be locked. And I mean locked so fucking hard that I remember countless hours at the studio, like, they would be going over the beats, and even Jared would be like, we'd be like, listen to the kick. Where's the kick? Where's that bass drum gonna fall? Where's the bass line gonna fall? And they linked up so hard that after a certain amount of songs, once we got our thing where it was like the bass and the drums did this, and me and Wes lived over here, and this da 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 da, you know, was never what a normal band would do, right? It was like that was our thing, and then we were able to write songs with our own style. And before I forget, I just want to say one more thing, because I know a lot of people always say, oh, this band copied you, or that band copied you, and they do this and they do that. Well, no, maybe a little bit. Like, yes, there were some bands that were influenced by us, sure. And yes, some things we did first, yes. But it's a very small part. Like, I don't think it's fair to say, like, oh, Limp Bizkit copied you. Yeah, maybe they liked some of the things we did, and they did a certain thing, but they never could copy all the things that we like. No one's going to write a jazz song. No one's going to go play Hill, a psychedelic 70s fucking trip out song. They're not going to, and no one's going to sing like no one could do any of the other things. It was just a very small part of what we did that became popular and then got capitalized on. So I don't want anyone to think that we think we got ripped off. I think maybe we influenced a little bit here and there, but just a very small part. Because our band, I still to this day will always contend, in the beginning, in those first few records, our arc was so wide open, dude. Like, so wide open. We could do any style. And that didn't help us, but at least it cemented the fact that we were on this other place. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We were super proud of that.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Super proud of that.
The range is, I mean, take this album. The range is insane.
Thank you for listening to Podioslave. We are at Podioslave on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of the places that you can find us on social media. Facebook, Podioslave Podcast. YouTube, Podioslave Podcast there. Email us at podioslavepodcast@gmail.com. And hey, if you want to become a supporter, click on the link at the bottom of the episode and give us $1, give us $5. It keeps the lights on, keeps us going. We really appreciate that stuff. Thank you.